Welcome to Sarder TV, an idea-sharing platform founded by Russell Sarder, who's an author, investor, and CEO of Netcom Learning. We're excited to have Cory Beck join us today. Cory is the U.S. Enterprise Skilling Manager at Microsoft, and he's here to tell us more. Cory, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
So you've been with Microsoft for, a little over 15 years, held various roles. Tell us a little bit about your career journey and, the various roles you had at Microsoft and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. I've been blessed. It's been a great journey at Microsoft. I started back in 2005. Before Microsoft, I actually spent a number of years in management and consulting and training. Actually, I was a training and a training manager. Coming to Microsoft, I've spent a lot of my time in the sales force, so customer-facing, strategic sales, and worked with some of our largest enterprise customers here in the United States. And then more recently moved into Worldwide Learning, which is a different organization within Microsoft, and have had the opportunity to get into program management within Worldwide Learning, which has been quite a nice run.
Tell us a little bit about that. What is your role as program manager?
Yeah, I lead a team, Vishali, that does both customer-facing as well as internal orchestration of skilling. So two very different, but similar areas. My team does direct customer engagement across 5 of the major Microsoft verticals in the United States, and what we do is enterprise cloud-oriented training and skilling for those customers. The rest of my team works towards the inside of Microsoft and how we orchestrate skilling for our own customers. And so it's actually been a very good mix of being able to be outside, but also see how we kind of cook the food inside as well and how it lands on our own employees.
Give us an example of what an engagement with an external customer might look like and how that might differ from some of your internal training.
Yeah, for sure. What we try to do, Charlie, is engage with customers across the verticals, and so education, financial services, federal, state and local government, healthcare, and work and get into determine quickly how those organizations do learning and skilling. Right. So that's the first thing we do is try to triage. How is it top down? Is it decentralized? And then find out the pockets of engagement that we need to penetrate. And so there will be, as anything, cloud training and skilling required across all types of organization, domestic or global or international, finding out where those learners are and developing skilling plans. And so that's how we typically will work with our enterprise customers, is developing skilling plans, across the board or through different subsidiaries. On the inside of Microsoft, it is developing and orchestrating training that kind of comes across numerous pillars: professional, technical, cultural training that comes from different sources, and then how that lands on the field is a lot of what we orchestrate.
Do you have separate L&D departments who are handling that, or do you have more of a COE that handles learning and development across Microsoft?
That is a great question. That is work in progress. The answer is we do not have one central organization. Worldwide Learning, where I sit, is largely the funnel of different sources of truth, and we are the gateway to distribution to the field and how we do skilling internal to Microsoft. And so again, it can be HR, it could be what we refer to as our worldwide role owners, right? When we have large groups of people in a certain role at Microsoft, they make decisions relative to their recommendations for skilling, and then we help land and funnel those decisions out.
So you said you have various pillars of training, professional. Can you give us an example of the types of programs within each of those pillars that you offer?
For sure. We have 4 pillars: cultural, compliance, technical, and professional. And with each of those pillars, they come together relative to the role that the person's in here at Microsoft and what they do, whether it's customer facing, program management, things like that, as you can imagine. And so compliance type trainings are very standard across corporations, standards of business conduct, right? Those types of things. Professional training varies by the segment. And so this is where I think you come into centralized versus decentralized skilling according to the needs of, say, the healthcare division that wants sales-oriented training for their field team, or the financial services team that wants more say, learn how to give a pitch sales training, or it could be a program manager that needs program management training on some new topic. And so we mesh those things together and land them across different pillars, and every employee can kind of see required recommended training by pillar.
What are some of your most popular, most in-demand type trainings? What is it that employees are asking for most?
A hot trend right now for us within, and I actually have seen this with some of our external customers, is what we'll refer to as kind of a pitch perfect. So learning the pitch. And we have a number of tools that can apply to all kinds of different use cases, but training our sales force to have the conversation and to get better at the key points, the messaging, a concise delivery. And so using tools and formats of working on some new application or program or a piece of software that we're bringing to the market. I'm seeing that across numerous pieces of our business right now. It's really, really on the increase.
So the pandemic has really changed the landscape of learning and development across industries. Tell us what you've seen over the last several months and some of the biggest changes in how learning and development operates.
Right away, almost a year ago, February 2020, we saw immediately things move to virtual training. I think that's across the board. We had plans for what I'll call the status quo of a lot of instructor-led, in-person classroom, privatized training. That shifted immediately to virtual, and that hasn't changed since, obviously, due to the pandemic. I think that, Vaishali, turned from virtual learning, then the domino started to fall relative to the concentration of meetings and content that everybody had to digest by being in front of a screen all day. And that led to digital fatigue, obviously. And so we've seen this evolution over the past year from move everything to virtual and do skilling through a screen. Well, guess what? Everybody else's screen time exacerbated with the lack of a commute, the lack of going to conferences, the lack of business travel. And so we've now seen this kind of a meshing and a desire to get more creative now with skilling, according to what we saw happen over the past couple months.
So what are some creative ways that you came up with to help some of the digital fatigue that has been felt, to help make sure that people are still learning and developing and are able to do the types of skills enhancements that are required?
There's no question there's a big trend towards micro-learning, like taking learning and breaking it into chunks, giving the employees, the students, the learners more opportunities, more modalities, right, that they can take advantage of to fit into their day. Just last week, I spoke with one of our intern colleagues who asked to translate curriculum into mobile usage, right? A very simple, not super technical execution, but what she does every day for self-care, she goes out on a walk with her dog at noon. She wants to get away from a screen for an hour a day. And so things like that, I think, are going to be more and more common, of developing curriculum content that is optional for the learner according to how they want to interact. If they need breaks and want to just have an audio execution, they can do that. And creating different platforms where the learners can engage in different ways, I think is a big trend we're seeing.
What have you seen that's most successful in the time that you have been doing it? So you gave one example, audio perhaps, podcasts. Anything else that you've seen that has worked?
We're working a lot towards balance right now. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. In addition to the technological delivery of training, it is the balance of training. It is what is required, what is recommended and encouraged. What does the employee drive? What are we blanket covering the sales force with? And I'm seeing this with my customers as well. But given the impacts of the pandemic and the changes and the shifts on everybody's work-life balance, giving the students more opportunities to self-navigate, but also, again, back to micro-learning, giving them opportunities to do it in chunks versus large formats of their time, which just simply they don't have right now, given the work culture we're all in. So those are some of the key things I'm noticing that we're transitioning to.
How is it that you're measuring engagement of this type of learning?
Yeah, we do a lot of work on the performance metrics of and the impact. And I think this comes back, Vaishali, to balance and intent, right? Like what is the training meant to do? What is the outcome? We've seen in years past CBD training, computer-based training, where you just put the employee in front of a screen, play the video, and make the employee kind of force them to watch the screen and do that. We've realized that lots of employees were clicking play and going and making coffee, right? And so that's not great for any regardless. So getting more engagement, and so we've actually worked really hard to develop curriculum that's more interactive with the learner versus just a play and watch me lecture you. And so those are some of the trends we're seeing, and I think finding great success with is do some of that instructional, but then stop, have the student do a lab, have the student reply back, engage the learner, keep them engaged through the content itself.
What platforms have you found that work best for that type of engagement, right? So the types of platforms that will allow learners to watch a little something and then do a little lab or answer a question. What are some good platforms out there?
We are really excited, Michelle. Microsoft just announced last week the Viva platform. It is a platform within a platform of our Teams software and services. But Viva has a learning application that just hit preview this past week. But it will allow organizations to curate content through the Viva Learning app on a phone or through your browser. We're really excited about that. It's going to give, I think, the ability to tie in with an LMS and present content in unique ways, or give organizations the ability to create custom content. So that comes right to mind relative to what we're doing in the marketplace. Microsoft also, for a long time, has had the MS Learn platform, which is our source of truth, customer facing for self-paced learning. We have added on to our Microsoft Learn platform the ability to gamify, all right, Teams-based gamification of Microsoft Learn. And so having organizations that can have the best of both worlds. I can have a learner self-navigate, but they're in a challenge with another group of people. And so their cumulative scores adds up and they can win prizes together. And we found that really successful. And so those are two that come to mind. We're doing a lot more open hacks as Microsoft. And so getting people around a table where you throw a lab in the mix. The platform actually doesn't matter. We use a bunch of different platforms for our open hacks, but getting a collaborative group of people to work on a problem together is a great way to learn. More oriented towards the technical, but we're finding a lot of success with that too.
Microsoft MS Live and the couple of other ones that you mentioned, are those paid platforms?
The Viva platform will be a licensed solution. MS Learn's free. That's online, and there's no charge for the Learn platform.
How have digital technologies really shaped and transformed learning and development in industry?
That's a great question. I'm blessed to sit in a chair of, like I mentioned before, working across some of Microsoft's largest U.S.-based industry units. Like I said, state and local government, U.S. federal, healthcare, our financial services team, our education team, right? So 5 of our largest verticals. And so it allows me to have a really good pivot into what's going on, how they kind of differ and how they're common. The healthcare team has set up a solutions academy, and their objective was to train folks from the healthcare industry that have come into Microsoft. They've got the healthcare industry knowledge. They don't have the Microsoft technical knowledge. And vice versa. We have a lot of technical people that have jumped in that industry unit they've got the technical chops, but they need to be trained up on the industry side. And so that's one example, solutions. We're seeing more and more in healthcare as well, what I'll call the digital edge of learning. So no longer do nurses and patient-facing engagement, those folks just do manual labor. That they now need technical upskilling because their job requires it. Like the patient tools are now becoming more and more digitized, and so a lot more learning being pushed to the edges of healthcare providers. That's one example. We're seeing in banking, quantum, AI, machine learning, a lot of upskilling required in the financial industry just because of number crunching and planning digitally and forecasting numbers and data. And so that's interesting to watch. And then I'd say lastly, Vishali, education's an exploding space for technology. I see that with my children, remote learning, and the evolution of how you reach a sixth grader to a high schooler to a university student through a screen. What are the ways to keep them engaged? There's a ton of innovation happening in that space. It's really fun to watch.
So then, taking all of this, tell us how AI and machine learning fit into the digital learning landscape.
It's a really exciting area. I think all of us have watched AI for a few years, waiting for it to mature, waiting for it to land. I think we're now starting to see that in a much more broad scale, and the future is very bright. We are seeing a lot more integration, I think, with more common curriculums and formats of digital engagement with you say chatbots, modalities of learning through AI, where AI assistant, so to speak, is engaging with you throughout the conversation. I can take learning on my own, but I'm engaging with something through AI. I think augmented reality is really catching on for us. The HoloLens platform that Microsoft offers has been transformative for a number of industries. One I'd call out, airplane mechanics, machinists that are now able to much more easily be trained by using virtual reality of interacting with things that cost a ton of money, logistically very difficult to get to a wide group of people. Through AI, we're now able to, and through mixed reality and augmentation, get those environments right in front of the learner. Think of airline pilots with simulations. There's all kinds of things shaping AI, and it's a super exciting space.
Which one are you sort of most fascinated and excited about from what you've seen?
I think probably the education vertical is probably what I'm seeing. Just seeing how AI influences like my own children. I helped my 14-year-old son with his algebra homework last night, and he was annotating on top of documents, and he was doing things that I didn't know he could do. And so I'm constantly fascinated, I think, just through my own children, of watching how AI is starting to get very much infused into the things they do, students. And to them it's second nature. To me, it's like I never had this kind of thing when I was your age. And so I think that's pretty cool for me to watch.
What do you think the future of education will look like with AI and machine learning?
You know what? That's great. I struggle at times with the remote element. I want my students, I want my children to be in front of a real learner and being with people. But there's a lot of excitement in the technological. So I lean towards the hybrid approach. I do want to see technology evolve in the education space and grow and give them more options than, I can walk the streets of Paris without having to fly to Paris, and I can interact globally and have my worldview shaped, but do that with a mix of both in-person learning with digital learning. So I'm really excited for that space, and I see it changing monthly, so it's pretty fun.
So there's a lot going on in the digital space when it comes to learning and development. What are some of the challenges that organizations face when it comes to all of this?
Boy, great question. I'd say a couple things. Diversity of employees comes to mind. Diversity of experiences, diversity of learning preferences are the three things I'd say right at the top. We have in the modern workforce, you have 17-year-olds, you have 75-year-olds, and it runs the gamut relative to what they've been exposed to. You can have a very early career stage that have been very exposed to technology, not as exposed to the professional side, and vice versa. You've had people in seasoned career stages that we really need to upskill. That's really difficult, I think, right now for organizations to rectify, because it's very much a human endeavor. Skilling is a human endeavor, just is. And so diversity of experiences, learning preferences. I think the other one is people's choice in learning. I might learn really well in front of you instructing me through a screen or through a lecture and take notes, and that's how I listen and learn auditory. Others need the hack. They need to be in a room. I need to play with it. You can lecture me all day long, but it won't register until I interact with the material. And so, on a grand scale, those are, I think, some of the challenges. Shally, is just navigating that as an organization. How do I deal with the spectrum of learners, their preferred styles, and navigate that? And then, lastly, I'd throw out the decentralization of learning. No longer is there typically in large organizations, one learning council who just kind of puts everything on a page. We are seeing a massive trend towards decentralized learning. This division, the HR division, the finance division, the legal division, that wants to set their own learning courseware and curriculums that are more at the edge. that's a challenge because that then bears with reporting and can I trust that those divisions will carry out a certain quality of learning, a certain amount or content. So it's both opportunity, but also, very, very difficult, I think, for some of these large organizations to navigate some of those challenges.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind for the more decentralized option is just scale and resources, right? So which organizations or which functions are using, certain platforms, are like platforms being used in other parts of the organization. So that creates a discrepancy in terms of, the number of resources that are being used, duplication, things like that. So yeah, it's complex. It could get really complex.
Yeah, we see, just to give one last piece on that, we see a lot of conflict even within Microsoft of the desire for numerous groups to want to give employees training, but then we're cross-layering the cumulative effect of that training on the employee. And so we're having to back off, like, hold on, I already assigned these things. Right. I'm filling up this person's calendar with these things that I already prescribed. Now you're adding these additional requirements on this learner. And so do we want this person, this seller in Microsoft terms, or this technical person or this engineer spending this much time learning, skilling? What about the person's day job and what we're paying that person to execute? And so that's difficult because you see it from both ways.
How can learning leaders map their learning and their learning agenda to the overall strategic objectives of the organization and what the CEO and the E-team sort of envision as the overall goals for the organization?
I think it's quite common for learning leaders to make decisions in the minutia, the platforms we're using, the LMS system that we're using, the amount of skilling. You can make all these decisions and get lost in the details and miss what you just asked, which is the most important thing. What's the purpose? What is the intent of what we're trying to accomplish? And so we are really trying to simplify that within Microsoft. I know a number of my customers are trying to get to this point of like, what is the point? What is the purpose of this division? We're skilling these people to accomplish what task, and how does that task align to our company mission statement? And so I think it's important for learning leaders to have that refreshing, check back at certain intervals and say, like, are we on point still? We released this courseware. Is that actually working? Is that meeting our company's missions and objectives that's been laid down from above? And so some of that's just purely good discipline in practice to know that our skill maps, our journey paths, whatever you want to call them for our employees, is actually aligning to what the function is of that organization. And so sometimes that's just simple mapping and looking back and reevaluating.
What are some things that learning leaders are doing to prepare for a post-COVID learning environment?
Post-COVID. I love that. Will there be a post-COVID? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a great question in the sense that I think some things will not change. I think COVID has hardened, much like 9/11 in the United States hardened air travel security. I think there's lots of things within COVID that is the new normal and will persist. The virtual learning, as an example, I think will not go away. Flex work situations, I don't think will go away. I think most companies will be forced, if you want to have top talent, to offer employees the ability of the flexibility that has kind of been created in the past year. We're seeing that internal, we're seeing that with customers. Relative to preparing my team, our organization, our customers, I'd say, a couple things. There is certainly a trend towards getting a little bit more personal than perhaps we used to with the employee's situation. Their work-life balance, for example. With my own team, I'm having more conversations that is a little bit sometimes uncomfortable, but needed, about what that employee is dealing with at home. I think COVID has certainly taught us that. I think we're going to have to get better at that, explaining and working with our leadership teams on the full picture of our life versus just the microcosm of my job. and exposing those things a little bit more so that I can get the most out of that employee and I can get the best talent on my team. And so preparing employees to be a little bit more transparent with the full scope of what they're dealing with. Self-guided career development is certainly something that I'm working hard to do with my own team, and giving employees the ability to be more transparent with the steps they want to take and figuring out ways to make that work for them versus us prescribing the 5 journeys. Preparing my employees to get smarter about, like, where are you going with your career? What do you want to do? What skills do you want? And we will find ways to do that because we value your talent, and we will put you to work in different ways. And then lastly, I think just the speed of innovation is a no-brainer. All employees are going to have to deal with more information, more plates spinning at one time than ever before. That's been exacerbated by COVID, and I don't think that's going to go away. The ability of just more content that you're struggling with, or getting out the door, so to speak, faster. So agility, the discipline of handling, I have these 15 things to do, what's the priority for my workday?
It's a lot to navigate even for employees, right? It puts a lot of onus on employees to map out their own journeys. And sometimes I think what's hard is to really sort of think through that, right? For employees to really think through what do I want? Where do I want my career to go? And versus what it used to be like, here's your path, and these are the steps that you need to do to get to, this level within the organization. Now it's organizations are becoming more open to even having a discussion around putting it on the employees to really help develop them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we recognize that the talent sometimes is more important than the title or the role. And so allowing employees and skilling them and skilling to their desired proficiencies and personality and career path is something I'm seeing a lot more of with my customers. And I might call you this title, but really you're doing these 14 functions, and I need to skill you according to those things that play to your strengths.
So what are the skills that employees should be looking to increase just to stay relevant in today's day and age, both hard skills and soft skills?
For sure, I'm seeing a big trend in what I'll call collaboration experience, like having the ability to collaborate on a team through, not specifically our team's collaboration platform, but in a team using software, demonstrate proficiency that you're really good at that. In a globalized culture, it's very rare that we have employees that are kind of out on an island working by themselves. And so I'd say collaboration in teams is something both soft and technical skill we look for. Our customers are looking for more and more as they're hiring. Do you have the ability? Have you just demonstrated a proficiency of working in a collaborative team digitally? Data and analytics, the ability to demonstrate that you have that you can rectify data and do number crunching and demonstrate an ROI and things like that, I think are just simple things that are really trending right now, and both in the open market, but also for just common jobs. Do you understand how to digitally engage with data? So those are two that come to mind. Some of the soft skills I don't think have changed. Being able to communicate well, being able to have a proficiency towards being a self-starter. Those are just some simple things that haven't gone away and are still core to how I hire, how my customers hire. Demonstrate to me that I don't have to chase you down or keep nudging you to get your job done. So work ethic, proficiency to go self-learn and self-manage. Show me that you've done that in the past. Those are some, I'd say, more on the soft skill side.
Microsoft puts a lot of emphasis on certifications and the importance of certifications to organizations, to employees. Tell us a little bit more about that and the value that certification brings.
Yeah, just give me about 7 or 8 hours. I'm happy to go through that topic with you. We absolutely do value certifications. We are one of the industry leaders in I think setting a tone for industry adoption, whether it's cloud practitioner, cloud proficiencies of certifications. We're firm believers, and that's only increasing for us. We're starting to see a lot of organizations base job hires. We're seeing levels within roles start to align towards industry certifications, whether it's ours or other cloud providers, CIC, SSP, things like that. So we're putting a lot of emphasis in making those really, really strong credentials that are recognized across the market and using them for career development benchmarks. And so we've gotten great feedback from our customer base on that. It is, we're starting to see, for example, in some of my customers, the ability to highlight and recognize as a great place to work that we have this many certified users or learners. Like I mentioned before, it's going on job resumes nowadays. And so we spend a lot of time evolving our certification base. We utilize LinkedIn quite a bit for letting users or learners demonstrate that and advertise that, within the resumes. I saw a great example just recently. Accenture is one of our largest both customers and partners. In Accenture Bangalore, they did a YouTube video that actually broke a Guinness Book World Record for the largest human chain of passing something, and they were passing Microsoft certifications one to another. I think it was 8,000 people on a YouTube video passed a certification. They said something effective, "I'm proud to be Microsoft certified," and passed it to the next person. It just kept going. And it's like an hour and a half long. It's something crazy, but it was an amazing example of like, that's an organization that does exactly what I'm speaking to. They value that in their segment, in their industry, and then they've made a way to make it fun as well. It's not just a go get it done and it's on the side. Like those employees really value and treasure what they've gotten as a demonstration of their hard work. And so we're going to keep evolving that. We've recently announced, lastly, I'll kind of finish with this, a stay current movement for our certifications. And so because technology is rapidly changing, it doesn't make sense anymore to get someone certified and then have that person go back 10 years later and still be credentialed on a cloud technology that's obsolete. And so we are working towards keeping certifications current and allowing the learner to demonstrate that they have the continual proficiency on even the changes. Now, we're going to make that easy for the learners, but we've actually gotten really good feedback that actually increases the value of some of these certifications. And so we're pretty excited about that. That's just rolling out this year.
Tell us about some of the biggest skills gaps that you're seeing today.
Yeah, some of the things we've spoken of, for sure, AI is in massive demand. Folks that have, what I'll call more the cutting edge AI development platform skills, we cannot find enough. My customers cannot find enough folks with cutting edge talent. In fact, not only Microsoft, but Amazon, Google, a lot of us are now sponsoring, upskilling changes in the field market to actually create a recruiting pipeline for these very hot technologies, because we don't create the pipeline. It's just not going to be there for the jobs that are required, not only by us, but many of our partners. So AI development, certainly data and analytics is most broadly a very hot commodity right now, and a skill gap that we see. The ability to parse data, the ability to get into that segment and create reports and crunch numbers and whatnot. And then, like I'd mentioned earlier, I think collaboration skills hasn't gone away, and that's only increasing. So within Microsoft Speak, our Teams platform, and demonstrating proficiency in the ability to say, like, I know how to work within Teams, or in some cases Slack, or some of the other collaboration technologies that are out there. Those are big, hot upskilling needs in the market right now, and we're working really hard to make sure that we can help with that pipeline. What
are some easy ways that we can continuously reskill ourselves?
For me, it's being an awake parent. I'll put it that way. I spending time with my kids is a fun way, I think, for me to stay tuned into to some amazing technology. I have 3 teenagers. My daughter is a freshman in college. She's a graphics design major. She texts me and sends me pictures of things she's working on. It just blows my mind, like the things that she's doing, the technology that now exists at her age, at the age of 18. I mentioned my 14-year-old son. He has just recently gotten a 3D printer. And so it took him about 5 seconds to pick that up and learn that, and the things he can do with the 3D printer. So, that's a simple example, but just having people in your midst, in my case, children that I can interact with that are doing some really cool things that I typically wouldn't have been exposed to or been interested in. They kind of bring it into my world. That's one example of just being skilled. It's just having a good, diverse set of friends and children and family members. It's traditionally mentors. Having mentors, for me, it's important to have a mentor outside of my organization, outside of Microsoft that I speak to. I have a couple friends I connect with monthly friends and mentors that give me perspective. How is your world going? What's happening in this world? And so I think that's important, to surround yourself with diverse peer mentors. And then largely, for the last part of it, is discipline. I set aside time every week that's my booked, blocked training time. And so for me, upskilling, and I will, throughout the week, I'll be exposed to links and videos and all kinds of things. I will put those into a bucket, and then I will use that time to catch up. And it's important for me to stay current as much as I can. And I have meetings all day long, and I can just get focused on the trench warfare, so to speak. But to come out, take a breath, and go, what's going on in the world? Scroll, read, take a class, things like that is really important for me to stay current. So I think those are some practical ways I think people can continuously get upskilled. But it all starts with a desire to do that and the awareness of the need to do it. So that's where I'd leave it at that.
What career experiences have you had that you feel helped you on the trajectory that you are today?
Working for great managers that inspire me is one I'd put on that list. Having a diverse set of roles, for sure. For me, I have been able to work with large customers. I've been able to work with small customers, and they behave completely differently. Technology savvy customers and those that are non-savvy, right? That gives you a different experience of how to engage, how to think. That certainly shaped me and who I am today in my past. And then working in different industry segments. I've had the opportunity to work with retail customers, food, manufacturing, healthcare, and professional services. And so being exposed to the language being used in these industries, the types of roles that exist and things like that is just, I feel blessed. It's given me a better perspective and worldview, so to speak, in my career of knowing what do I like. That's helped shape me, and like, where do I go? But I'm just very thankful. I would encourage it to anybody. I encourage it to my team to make sure that you're getting diverse experiences along your career journey, and you're not getting so fixated in a very comfortable job. Even moving into worldwide learning, more in this past couple of years has helped me get a whole different exposure to program management, which is very different than sales, frankly, right? And again, it opens up a whole new world of engineering and how we deliver initiatives and whatnot. So very thankful. I've been blessed for my career journey.
Well, this was great, Cory. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been good to spend time with you. Thanks for the questions. It stirred up some good thinking, and it's been enjoyable.
And we'll see you next time on Sarder TV.